I'm Maddie, and this is my first book review. I will be reviewing Divergent by Veronica Roth. I think basically everyone in the world knows the plot of this book by now, but I'm just gonna summarize it anyway. This book takes place in the futuristic world of Chicago, where everybody has to be divided into 5 factions based on personality traits and what you prize above all else. Tris, the lead character, in her aptitude test, got the result Divergent, which means that they don't really know what faction she should fit into, and that's basically the setup of this book. What's kind of interesting about this book is that it really reflects something that I think all adolescents feel in their life, the thing that you have to choose. Here is the important test, and this is the test that will determine your future in this subject, which will determine your future in life, which will determine whether you're alone in a cardboard box on the side of the road. And this book actually explores that really well, because that's what happens if you don't choose properly. This book, a lot of people would classify as being dystopian, because there's a lot of dystopian literature out now, but it's not really. I think dystopian and utopian, the difference between them all depends on the main character, and the main character's feelings toward their world. But Tris doesn't question her world at all, and she just goes with it. I'm going to choose Dauntless, and this is what I'm gonna do. And that's interesting, because that makes it a very utopian story instead of dystopian, because she doesn't question the world and whether it's wrong or not until much later on. Tris as a main character is very interesting. A lot of young adult fiction seems to have the same sort of stereotype of a main character who's like, you know, brave and like sets out to do things but also selfless and everything. But Tris is totally a mean person sometimes, and it's good that she has character flaws like that. The first night a kid was crying and she just got really mad at him in her head, and that was interesting because she's not a nice person necessarily through and through. The side characters are really likable, but yeah, spoilers. Basically they all die in the end, so that's a bit upsetting. The only one who doesn't also die in the end is Four, who is, you know, your love interest. He's got the muscles and the stuff. I can understand why people do like this romance. It's really popular. I mean, they both have similar pasts and they get along well as a couple, but I don't know, it didn't resonate with me like a lot of romances do in books, and I mean, it just seemed kind of like, I don't know, there was no build up to it. But I mean, I can understand why people like it. Another random thing, the author does heights really well, like the time when Tris was climbing the Ferris wheel or about to go ziplining, you can feel it in your stomach. It's just, yeah, don't read this book if you have a fear of heights. Okay, read it, but, you know, be even more scared than I was. Now let's talk about the faction system, because that was really interesting to me. I really love dystopian worlds or utopian worlds that are like really set into line, and the faction system is totally about that. So there's Erudite, Candor, Dauntless, Abnegation, and Amity. And basically, from what I can tell, Amity is all full of hippies. That's the one I would have chosen. I mean, I saw the movie first, which, I know. But every time there was a background character who was Amity, they just walk through kind of like, and I'm like, that's me, I am that. That's who I am. The Candor seemed kind of underdeveloped to me. I don't know if anybody would choose the one that's just about truth and lying. But they laid it so that in future books, the Candor can be developed upon, so I guess that makes sense. Also, it made for a lot of fun side characters who just tell the truth all the time. Like, I think Christina was from Candor, so that was pretty cool, because she'd just, oh, you know, run her mouth off, and everybody would be like, eh. And the Erudite, they're the smart people. They prize intelligence. I really liked the way she described their base, like where they live. It seems like a place that I would want to live. A lot of these factions appeal to me, and I think they're meant to appeal to a lot of people, just because everyone is kind of divergent in some way. Abnegation was a really cool faction. They give everything to everyone, but it's kind of extreme giving. Like, everybody feels a twinge of guilt when they see those Sarah McLachlan Animal Shelter SPCA commercials. But Abnegation take it a step further, and they don't even let you see your own reflection, because you have to be so selfless. And it's kind of the extreme of selflessness. Like, everybody is a little bit selfless. Everybody is a little bit of all of these personality traits. But the factions take it to such extremes. It's like, can anybody really be prescribed under one of these labels? And this, of course, brings us to the Dauntless faction, which is the faction that a lot of people say they'd like to choose. But, like, are you guys insane? Because you just die every day. I don't understand how they have children living there. I did not feel like I would have chosen Dauntless at all, and every time she was doing anything I was like, ah, but that was really well described, so good job, Veronica Roth, because that is scaring me. I mean, from the very first thing, they have to run and jump onto a moving train, and they do that every day of their lives, and I don't understand how any of them are still alive, because, like, I trip getting cereal in the morning. If I wasn't Dauntless, they'd be like, "You jump on that train," and I'd be like. And a lot of people do die in Dauntless, and the whole time you're questioning, like, am I supposed to feel like this faction is the good faction? But it turns out that, in the end, they've kind of realized that it's not too. Triss only begins to question her world near the end, when the Dauntless leaders are proved to be more corrupt than expected. And I think it's more the leaders of every faction that are corrupt. When anybody with that strongly defined, our character trait is right, gets a lot of power, that's going to be bad, because everybody has to be a little mix of everything in order to succeed. And once you start getting that sense of pride in your single trait, you kind of lose sight of everything else that belongs to you and makes you who you are. So that's my review of Divergent. If you like Divergent, another futuristic kind of book you could read that's a utopian society would be The Giver. Same thing, they sort of lay out what people are to do and how their lives are to be lived, and it's a similar sort of feeling. So if you haven't read that one, get on it. See you next week, Al. So, can you not? Cat! Cat, go away! Usurper!